tell me a little bit about your role. What do you do for a living?
Yeah, so I am the executive director for NAMI Finger Lakes. NAMI is the largest grassroots organization for mental health. And the NAMI Finger Lakes is an affiliate of the national model, and we support, educate, and advocate for those closest to people who have mental health conditions. So we mostly serve family members and friends who are living with and supporting somebody that has a mental health condition.
And so, do you find your job to be rewarding? And if so, why?
I do. I think that being an executive director is really rewarding to me because it matches my skill sets of organization and um, details and community partnerships and relationships. And as far as the work, I find it personally very meaningful because I have a lot of family members that struggle with mental health. And one thing that's unique about NAMI is the people that work for NAMI and the board members and the volunteers all have lived experience with mental health illness also. So it just really feels like there's no stigma there and you can be yourself and it's kind of like having a family in addition to having a job.
Now, how many home bases do you have in the Finger Lakes, or is it just one?
Yeah, we just have one. So we're titled NAMI Finger Lakes, and there are, I think, 16 counties in the Finger Lakes. Maybe it's 14. We only represent two of those counties. So it's kind of interesting that we were titled Finger Lakes.
What
Um,
two counties do you?
we represent Tompkins County and Cortland County. There's a NAMI Cayuga County, and then there are some counties in the Finger Lakes that are absorbed by NAMI Rochester and NAMI Syracuse. And then
Okay.
there's a lot that don't have representation, and NAMI people that live in a place where NAMI doesn't have an affiliate just can get services from NAMI State or an affiliate that's close to them.
And how does someone go about doing that?
So NAMI has an amazing website presence. So you can just go to NAMI.com, which is like, I think it's NAMI.com or NAMI.org. That's the national site. And then you can look up where your closest affiliate is. And then if you're in a state, you can just go directly, you can just Google NAMI New York and they'll pop right up.
Wonderful. So, one of the things we wanted to talk about was mental health during the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Things can get a little stressful, right? We
Yes.
have some pressure on us during this time of year. So, can you kind of talk about some of the things that you see?
Yeah, absolutely. One statistic that I read recently in an article is that 64% of people that have a mental health condition experience worsening symptoms during the holidays, which is just a huge percentage. Um, I think a lot of that's attributed to stress and just like loneliness is probably the second. Um, so loneliness obviously exasperates depression and negative feelings and hopelessness. Um, so I think a lot of it has to do with, the expectations of the holidays, whether you celebrate just Thanksgiving or Hanukkah or Christmas, there's a lot of tradition that's steeped around the holidays in your family. And usually those traditions come down to you from your parents and there's a lot of pressure to perform, a lot of social events. And I think that that's just really hard for a lot of people that have mental health conditions. And it just adds a lot of extra stress and burden on trying to put on a happy face. And that's what a lot of people with mental illness do is they put on a happy face and try to make it through.
Which is not ideal.
Not ideal. Not ideal.
Talk to me about some of the things that do cause stress specifically for people, and then potentially some of the tips and tricks that you can give us to get through. So some of the things that cause big stressors, and then if you're feeling that big stressor, what can you do to kind of protect yourself and keep yourself grounded?
Yeah. So I think I'll speak from my own personal experience. I think in families, there's a lot of expectations on family members on how the holidays will go and how people will participate. In my personal experience, that usually comes from the moms, and I'm guilty of this also. And so there's like, okay, here's what we're going to do, A, B, C, D, and it's like all laid out. And those things might not be even something that your family members are interested in doing, right? And so then as soon as there's like, oh, I don't want to do that, or I'm going to bow out of that, then the dad or the man steps in like, you got to make your mom happy. And so there's this pressure and guilt around setting boundaries for yourself and advocating for yourself and what you need if you do have a mental illness or you're experiencing depression or just aren't feeling up to the holiday spirit. And so I think expectations in general make up a lot of the stress. There's expectations to buy gifts, to go shopping, and in all of these busy places where there's lots of people, which also is a big stressor for most people in general. And then it's exacerbated in people that are experiencing symptoms from mental health illnesses. And there's a lot of social engagements. I think everybody wants to see everybody on the holidays, and so it's just all about parties, instead of like, let's just go have coffee and say hi. So there's a lot more stress to go to a party and get dressed up and like be in this social situation. So in my experience, my family members really struggle with a lot of that stuff. And I think that some of the tips are, if you are the person that are experiencing symptoms or issues or need something that's not different than what's being offered, I think it's important to advocate for yourself. Like, know what you need and want, and then just say what you need and want. And you're going to make people disappointed potentially, but it's better to have that conversation and communication as opposed to try to fake it and then have it not go well, because then nobody's happy.
Right.
And I think if you're the person that's like living with someone that has mental health issues, it's important to communicate with them and ask. And even if they don't have mental health issues, just in your family in general, like, what do you guys want this holiday to look like? Do you want to have a big dinner? Do you want to invite a lot of people over? Do you want to just stay home and watch TV? So I think it's important for both sides to write down maybe a list of what you want the holiday to be, and then try to find some common ground and identify the most important things. So I think most people would say the most important thing is being together with their loved ones, but I don't think that it plays out that way. It becomes the most important thing is this big turkey or, the big tree and 6 hours of gift opening and whatever your traditions are. So I think that those are some tips, and just to also just be kind to yourself. If you're in a situation where you're kind of socially expected to be there and it's not going well, it's okay to just peace out. Like, I'm going home. Like, thank you for the night, and go take care of yourself and what you need.
And if with dealing with relatives is another thing that can be triggering for people. Talk about that.
Yes. That has always been a really interesting thing, because everyone has different favorites and don't want them there, right? I do think that that's very challenging. I think in my own personal experience, we've tried to have those conversations. Are you comfortable with this person spending 5 days at our house? And if my family members are like, no, I really need that not to happen, then I will say no. I think saying no is important. And I think in general, there's not, like, if you live in a house with other people and they invite people, there's not a lot of control that you have. But again, you are able to take care of yourself. You can go for a walk. You can excuse yourself for a period of time. Go read a book in your room. So I think that some things just are out of your control, but there are ways to maneuver around that. Go ahead.
If you find yourself in a stressful situation over the holidays, you're feeling like financially burdened, you're feeling like the expectations are crushing you. Are there any kind of like, can you take some time to yourself and maybe do breathing exercises? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I think exercise, meditation, prayer, whatever your thing is to relax, I think is really important. And I think also limiting your schedule to what you can handle. And that might be saying no to some things or spending less time at different events.
Is your organization busier during the holidays because the holidays tend to be stressful?
I think one of the things that adds stress to the holidays for everybody is that it coincides with the end of the year. And I think the end of the year is just stressful for so many groups of people. Like students are dealing with finals and exams and tests. Organizations are dealing with end of year numbers. Retailers are trying to get all their money in, right? So I think nonprofits, it's the end of the year, fundraising is happening. And so all that's heightened. There's a lot of invites to parties. So I definitely think in that way, it's a lot busier and stressful. Definitely, probably the same with most people.
So I guess what's your best advice for people living in the Finger Lakes to make it through?
I think the best advice is to know what you need and to take care of yourself. Um, I think if we didn't talk very much about like the depression stressor or like missing loved ones during the holidays, and I think that that's really important to recognize that if you're in a situation where you're feeling sad and hopeless, it's okay to share that with people and just ask people to be with you, even if it's not in a social event or a social engagement. Um, I think if you see somebody that's really struggling, 988 is an amazing new resource that we have. So it's a crisis hotline. It gets you to somebody that you can talk to. And you don't have to be the person struggling to call 988. It could be you're watching someone struggle and you just need help finding resources or advice on what to do. It's a really amazing resource where, you know, if you're in a situation where you don't really feel like you need to call 911, the person's not in danger, you can get help and resources for that person.
All right, you did such a great job. Is there anything else that you'd like to ask? Maybe something I should have asked you that I didn't?
Well, one thing I just wanted to point out when I was preparing for this, I did notice that NAMI California did an amazing, excellent article on mental health on the holidays, and their website is namica.org. And in general, even on the NAMI site, there's a lot of like tips and information on how to help your loved one or how to help yourself get through the holidays. So there's a lot of information out there.